Again, my name is Jessica Gonzalez-Rojas. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am a candidate for the New York State Assembly in the 34th Assembly District here in Queens, which covers the communities of Jackson Heights, East Elmhurst, Corona, and Woodside. And as a candidate, I am committed to many, many social justice issues. But when the coronavirus hit, we quickly shifted our regularly scheduled campaign events to focus on two things. We decided to shift and at the time stop petitioning in order to conduct phone banks every single night to make sure that we're reaching neighbors and that we're offering community aid and mutual aid support, checking in on our community, seeing how they're doing, if they have the resources that they need to be able to survive in this really difficult moment. And then we've been also shifting from what would have been in-person town halls on different issues to virtual town halls on issues that impact our lives, specifically in this moment and how coronavirus has hit our community. As you all know, we're in the epicenter of the epicenter. So we've held town halls specifically about the coronavirus itself. We held them on homeschooling, on housing, on managing mental health in this moment, on natural remedies to boost immunity, on criminal justice, on the budget that was recently passed in Albany that really hit us hard. Just last week, we talked both about the census and about public benefits. What are the resources that folks can use in order to get the help that they need in this moment? All with local experts from our community or from New York City. So if you missed any of these webinars, they're posted on our website at votejgr.com/coronavirus. And as I mentioned, we're doing phone banking nearly every single night, and we've already called thousands and thousands of neighbors, but there's thousands and thousands more neighbors that we want to reach. So please, if you have time, we'd love for you to join us at one of our phone banks at votejgr.com/phone bank, where you can sign up for a shift. So before I introduce our amazing guests, and we have a very special guest, I will want to share some logistics. So folks are automatically muted as we begin the conversations, just so there's no background noise. But we do encourage your questions, and we really want to have a conversation here. So there's two ways to engage. You can hit the chat button and chat your question if you don't want to get on camera. Or you can hit the participants button and then raise hands if you'd like to get on camera and ask your question live. I'll be playing the role of Oprah, so feel free to begin chatting in the questions so we can keep the dialogue going. We'll also just shutting off the streaming, the video, in order to improve the streaming quality. We will be live tweeting in both English and Spanish, so please follow Vote JGR Webinar, the hashtag Vote JGR Webinar, and retweet. And we will be wrapping up by 9 p.m. So we are super excited to have two people join us tonight. Our original guest, which is Pedro Rodriguez, who's the founder and executive director of La Jornada Food Pantry in Queens, will be joining us, but will probably be joining us in about 20 minutes because he had an emergency. But we're really excited to have him join us to talk about the impacts of food access in the moment, and particularly food insecurity amongst many communities of color and many immigrant populations that have been completely excluded and left out of many of the relief packages that are here. So in the meantime, I'm super thrilled to have my friend and fellow candidate, Sandy Nurse, who is running for New York City Council in the 37th District in Brooklyn. And she is an amazing organizer, a carpenter. She grows food. She's an Afro-Latina who's born in Panama to an immigrant father and is raised by her single mother. And she comes from a multicultural family with siblings who were born and raised in Puerto Rico, right? So we have the Puerto Rican connection here. She's the founder of two organizations, of BK Rot, and she's the co-founder of Mayday Space, which is a direct action organizer and carpenter, which is what she does. She's dedicated her life to addressing issues through direct interventions. She's built farms in food deserts. She's created jobs where we have high unemployment, and she's developed community space where it's scarce. So I'm super excited to have Sandy join us to talk about the important work she's doing in New York City around the food insecurity that we're facing. One thing I want to note is that as we're doing our phone banks, I think the number one issue has been food and the lack of access to food. And our campaign team, myself and my volunteers and my team, we've already gone out and done a number of grocery runs, getting basic food, basic supplies, medicine, toilet paper, cleaning supplies to our neighbors to ensure that they have what they need to survive. So while I'm very humbled to be able to provide that service in this moment, it is unsustainable. But this is what the moment calls for many of us, our community leaders, to step up and serve our community in this moment. And Sandy's been doing an incredible job of doing that. So Sandy, welcome so much. Welcome to our program, to our virtual town hall. And thank you so much for joining us at the last minute. And I really want you, if you can just really introduce yourself and talk about the work you've been doing and what you're doing in this moment since coronavirus has hit.
Yeah. So hi everyone. Thanks, Jessica, for having me on. Happy to be on here last minute in support. Very much a fan of the work you're all doing and the campaign you're running. It looks really great from over here in Brooklyn. So my name's Sandy. I'm running for District 37 in the City Council. And my background is really in food and waste, environmental justice. So I have built farms all over the city. I started a youth green jobs program where we were capturing food waste and turning it into compost to give to local farms. I've been an instructor at Farm School, New York City for the last 5 years. I teach a course on soil and I teach their carpentry course. And so through that, we've been able to build lots of infrastructure. But I guess what I can offer here before your other guest comes on is maybe just a very quick overview of just how food insecure New Yorkers are. It's actually pretty astonishing how many New Yorkers are at some point in time in a year or throughout their week are really, really struggling to get food before any of this hit. So I think as of last year, over 1 million New Yorkers in New York City were relying on SNAP, which is the food assistance program that the city provides. They're saying there's even more folks that obviously, folks who are undocumented or are not able to access public assistance are completely not even accounted in that statistic. It's an estimated around 18 to 20% of all children in the city are food insecure, so they don't know where their next meal is coming from. On top of young people who are homeless in the city who don't know where they're going to sleep that night. So food insecurity is a very, very deep issue, and it conforms across racial lines. So some of the neighborhoods where the largest demographic is Black and brown folks, those are the areas where there's generally not as much access to fresh foods that they can afford. They actually call them food swamps. These are places where there is an abundance of quote unquote food, but it's food that is like junk food, things that do not have high nutritional value. And particularly for young people, they're not getting the nutrients they need, even though there's seemingly food all around them. So some of the things about how the system works, we actually hosted a webinar on food security and food insecurity about a couple of weeks ago, and we had some folks on who are experts in the food system, as well as a person named Keith Carr who works for City Harvest. And so I have some notes from that, and just like throwing out some interesting facts and figures. One is that within a 6-hour radius, there are over 100,000 farms in New York City. And much of that food doesn't actually reach New York City because of the food system and pricing and the way supply lines and the way labor is set up. Most of that food isn't actually come here. But New York City is surrounded by a very fertile food shed. There's tons of incredible arable land for growing food locally that would reduce our food miles and have this kind of access available to us. There's also tons of farm workers and food workers across this city and the upper Hudson Valley. Many folks who are migrant workers, immigrants, undocumented folks who are constantly facing all sorts of threats to their wages and don't have access to a lot of the protections that many of us enjoy as just like as being citizens or having some kind of status here. So right now, the food pantry system that most of us, a lot of folks in the city are relying on, comes from excess in the food system. There are tons of food rescue organizations in New York City who all they do is they run around every day and collect from delis and grocery stores and restaurants, the market in Grand Central, Italy, all of these places where there's just food everywhere. And they collect just pallets and pallets of food that is either right about to expire or just past the expiration date that cannot legally be sold. And so most of our food pantry system is based on just complete waste. And at this point, which I think is really important just to get like really in the moment. At this point, many of those pantries have shut down. I know in our area, a lot of folks have shut down. They're almost entirely based on volunteer labor, and most of ours are based on our senior citizens. They are most of the folks who work these pantries. And of course, because it is a high-risk group, a lot of those folks are not here. So a lot of pantries actually in our community have shut down. Not to mention that as a lot of businesses have shut down, there's not as much food waste. And even the businesses that are open, they are not being as liberal as they normally are with their purchasing, right? So they are, buying exactly what they think they can sell. And therefore, there really isn't waste right now. And so pantry stocks are drying up. I've been working in a partnership with City Harvest for the last month. We've been moving pallets and pallets of food, bagging it and bringing it to public housing residents and to families who are signing up through different mutual aid groups and also through our phone banking. And what we've seen over the last 4 weeks is going from lots of very fresh produce, carrots, kale, cabbage, lots of high nutrition things. And we're now getting down to things that simply don't make sense to give to a family in need. So things like coffee creamer or bags of pretzels and snacks, watermelon, just random items that are being left over. And one of the things we're hearing from them is that many of the farms in this country are simply just not producing. We have farmers who are literally destroying fields of crops because they're saying there's no quote unquote demand. We have dairy farmers that are just turning on the milk faucets and letting the milk just go out and emptying it from their tanks because of, again, a lack of demand. Many of you may have seen the image of the mountains of potatoes that are being dumped in, I believe, North Dakota because they're saying people aren't buying this. So right now, people don't have purchasing power, but we still have the demand. And so what's incredible is just how much this moment is showing how broken our food system is and how much of our food system is dependent on excess that will trickle down to folks who just don't have access. This is something that has literally sustained millions of New Yorkers in New York City, homeless folks, folks who don't have access. These pantries are sustaining people, millions of people before this. And what we're seeing now is folks who've never had to stand in a bread line, who've never had to stand in a hot soup line, are wondering how to get access to food. So it's a really big crisis. And we've also seen on our end, there's no night when we're calling that we're not adding people to our list of needing groceries. And it's not every week that we're able to meet the full list. So I think what's incredible is just how many people are pulling together and using the resources we have, such as like the phone banking list or these mutual aid groups that are popping up, really trying to leverage whatever networks and resources they have. But as you mentioned, Jessica, this is so unsustainable. And just, it's really such a shame, especially when we are surrounded by farms who have food growing in their fields right now. So some of the things that are really interesting, there are about 600 community gardens and farms. There are about a little bit over a dozen large-scale full production farms in public housing. And right now, a lot of these are shut down. And so there's a real need to jumpstart the growing season. Certainly, those farms will not meet all the demand that exists, but it is a high priority that these spaces start growing now, and that the city allows people to access these spaces so we can start getting stuff in the ground to grow, because we don't know where we're going with this recovery. But what we do know is that if people are plowing, destroying their crops right now, what are they going to be doing in the growing season when we're really, really hard hit by the economic crisis? So that's just a little bit. I mean, feel free to interject. And
yeah, I'm curious. That's heartbreaking to hear that food is being wasted in a moment where the need is so desperate. Do we have a sense of? So I understand like the purchasing power to purchase food has been limited because of the economic devastation that our communities have faced. But is there a way for these farms to? I mean, literally, they're taking the food and getting rid of it. Is it also the limitations on like transportation of food and the truck drivers and other systems in which the farmers depend on to get the food to certain communities that's impacting its ability to even donate the food? Or is there other factors at play in terms of why the food is being wasted? I mean, it breaks my heart to hear that. And like, we're hearing the same stories, and to imagine like how many families could benefit from potatoes and kale and milk. And, just the other day we did a grocery run for a family that asked for 3 gallons of milk. That's a lot of milk, right? But it was very necessary for their growing family. So it's devastating to hear. And I'm just really trying to wrap my head around why, if they're going to empty the faucets or leave it in a field, then why not get it to the families that need it, even if they don't make the money that they need to make it from the farms.
So some of it is labor issues, and particularly in meat, right? Like meat slaughterhouses. An astonishing case is a slaughterhouse in the northern Midwest that had over 700 workers infected with corona. Like they had to shut down. They didn't want to shut down. So a lot of the farm labor are folks who are very, very vulnerable, right? These are immigrant workers. They have to work. They're not getting access to the public service system that would allow them to not work. And the people running these businesses are trying to stay open, right? But the slaughterhouses are places where there's just a lot of close contact. There's a lot of fluids and things around. And so those places have been slowly shut down. Transportation is an issue. We get a ton of our food from imports. So when people in other places in the world do not have adequate health systems, when they don't have enough testing, when they don't have enough equipment, safety equipment, and they have to shut down, that all impacts us. When we don't have safety at the ports and we don't have people at their jobs, all of that shuts down slowly the food system. The issue with farmers is there's differences, right? There's small farms that really, really are generally operating in debt. Most farms do not make money right now. The only farms that make money are very large agribusinesses that are already subsidized by the federal government. So this is an area where I believe the federal government, states have an opportunity to put in their budget, like, we're going to buy from these farms. We have 100,000 farms in 6 hours. we're going to buy food for these farms and make sure there's food in the city, get the farmers paid, get the farm workers paid, and make sure families in the city have food. Mm-hmm. It's really a no-brainer. But we have, as you know, we have at the top of our, at the helm of this country, mm-hmm. someone who just has an utter disregard for pretty much anything. Mm-hmm. So, this is someone who's not thinking the way we're thinking about, what is a common sense solution in terms of putting aside federal funding to purchase and get the supply chains going again, so that farmers who can pay farm workers to actually pick the crops and then get it on a truck and get it moving. It's pretty incredible just how short-sighted people are who are in power right now. Yeah.
And I think we're really aligned in this philosophy, right? Understanding that intersectionality is real, right? And that this is not just a food issue, but it's also a worker justice issue. It's an environmental justice issue. It's a safety net issue, right? And it is really important that we look at all these overlapping factors together, because they all impact one another. And one thing that made me furious is the fact that there was efforts to reduce the pay of farm workers in order to make it cheaper to grow the food, but that's putting our farm worker community, who, as you mentioned, were largely immigrants, at risk, and overworking them, underpaying them, and literally putting their lives in danger, in which perhaps if they're not well, they're not able to get the health care that they need, right? All these issues impact one another. So that's just coming up for me in terms of how important it is to look at policies and the ways in which they impact one another.
Right. I mean, another thing that I think what's incredible, doing this phone banking and seeing all the mutual aid groups doing this work is just how slow the state and city has been to respond to this. I've been, there was a period where I felt so down. I was like, I can't believe this is one of the richest places in the world. There's so much money here. There's so much taxable income here. And yet the governor didn't include this in his budget. Mm-hmm. Said we're now in this austerity budget that's now trickling down.
Yes.
So a lot of programs that are sustaining the farming community are going to be hit hard. Mm-hmm. They're not seen as a priority. So I guess what I'm really excited for people like you to be there next year, who can really fight for like a comprehensive set of issues of like, it is not just about food access. It's about workers' rights. It's about education. It's about prioritizing getting money to these small local farmers and moving money away from these huge, almost monopolistic corporations that are growing a lot of food that's not necessarily healthy for us, that's been modified and chemicalized and all of these things happening in it, and start to focus on essentially the small businesses that are right around us, that are producing in some of the best, most healthiest ways, with respect for our environment. And that's a place where state funding really matters, because so many farmers in our area that we could be relying on are essentially broke. They are all like drowning in debt because they can't compete in the market with large agribusiness. So this is a place actually where folks who are at the state level really can make an impact. And even though it might not be felt right now, using this moment of crisis and just how many people are seeing it, it's an opportunity really to really push harder.
Exactly.
So rooting for you.
Yes, thank you. And just a reminder, if you have a question, you could chat it in the chat box, or you could raise your hand. Sandy, one other thing that you've worked on, you're a founder of, is BK Rots, which does a lot of work around composting and ensuring that composting is accessible to our communities. Can you talk about that work and like even how that organization was like, how is that envisioned, and what's the work that you're doing now? I saw that you were training folks to use the bikes, the e-bikes. e-bikes, like automated bikes, the electronic bikes, in order to get access to composting now. And I know a lot of the composting programs in New York City have stopped. So can you talk about sort of the interplay between the work that BK Rotz has done, is doing, and its impact in this moment where a lot of these important programs are being shut down because of perhaps health concerns or just, worker issues?
Right. Yeah, so BK Rot is, we started in 2013, and the mission really was, we live in a neighborhood that has experienced pretty bad environmental injustices. We have a lot of air pollution from waste trucks. We have a big waste transfer station that emits smells and chemicals. There's huge amounts of lead in our soil, like in many places in New York City. We have some of the highest rates of youth homelessness, and yet youth are one of the largest demographics in our community. So really the goal was to look at ways where we are capturing this resource, which is food waste, and repurposing it and putting it back into a method of remediating soils, healing land, but using it as the building blocks for supporting what many like to call food sovereignty movement, which is communities really utilizing spaces to grow the food we need because we don't have it here. And we can't access it. And obviously in New York City, that's very challenging because we don't have swaths of land like in other places. But the issue, I'm very disappointed to see that the mayor cut the municipal organics recycling program. I think what it shows is that people still see separating out organics waste as like this kind of like niche issue, this like thing that we do when we have the luxury. But our waste stream actually costs us a lot of money in New York City. It's a huge part of our budget. We spend so much of our city and state resources literally taking trash, putting it in containers, and shipping it to other surrounding states, shipping it to countries all around the world. And because many countries around the world have been doing that for years, they're just saying, we just don't want New York City's trash anymore. We don't want it. It doesn't matter what you're paying us. We don't want it. So not only do we have a logistical issue, the fact that, organic waste, your food scraps, when that is in a landfill, it creates greenhouse gas, right? And that's material that we could be using to replenish our farms that right now, we're stripping away so much of our topsoil. So this is really an issue where food access, the ability to grow food in the future, we need this organic waste to turn into compost so we can put it back on farms so we continue to grow food. Because without that, what people use is chemicals. And chemicals, as many of you know, chemicals in food create multiple health issues later on. It compounds many chronic health issues. And there's a lot of science and medicine around this. So I think the issue is, the mayor is cutting the composting program as if we don't also have a climate crisis happening, right? We don't have much time. And this is very much a huge part of the city's ongoing plan to reduce emissions. So it gets really wonky. But the main thing is that we have to, we can't act as if dealing with our waste is a luxury. It's actually a job generator. It's actually going to be a huge part of us being able to have a city to live in. And it's actually a huge part of us being able to grow food without all these harmful chemicals that many of our bodies, it doesn't work on or causes us to have issues down the line. So I think it was a mistake, and I think there's actually going to be a town hall on next Tuesday about it by a large coalition.
And I think what I love about the work that you do is that it's very community rooted, right? How do you get folks excited about this issue? Like, I think you hit the nail on the head that people think of it as like a luxury in some way, that, composting is something that you do if you have time, or it just doesn't feel important. And even, I volunteered in food pantries where I actually saw people throw out food that was like a tomato that's a little rotten. And I was like, that could be composted, right? It like broke my heart to see it just being tossed, because I know that it could be used to pay it forward and be able to contribute to, again, growing this food. So what's the education component, and how do you engage in communities that are often, disenfranchised and not included in these kind of conversations to really like own their power and create that like collective community urgency around this issue?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the curbside composting, there's no greater example right now that I see that of racial environmental racism than the organics program, because Bushwick, Brownsville, East New York, we don't have it. We don't have it. Almost every other part of the city has had it. It started in a wealthy, white, affluent area of the city, like Windsor Terrace, Park Slope, and they percolated out from that way, as opposed to saying, let's start in the neighborhoods that we think people don't know about these things, right? A lot of folks working with the young people we worked with, a lot of them have, they're immigrants. They've only been here for a few years. They're coming from farming communities, and they knew already what this was. They were like, oh yeah, we throw our food in the backyard all the time in Guyana or whatever. So these folks knew what was going on, and the city's assumption that they don't just shows that environmental racism exists. It exists in city policy. There's some weird idea that Black and brown people who don't have cash, don't know how to compost, and don't understand that we have an environmental crisis. I refute that. And so to me, it was really important that we start empowering the folks who are seen as the least likely to be doing this activity, and pay them well, and position them as leaders. They're the leaders who are leading this work. So yeah, I continue to be disappointed by the way the city rolls out its environmental programs, and the way that the environmental programs are so tied to food access and food security. It's all the same. People don't think that we know what we need and what we deserve, and so we're always the last to get these kind of solutions. So yeah, I think, starting from our communities, that's the way we get folks excited. I will give the city credit. They've spent a lot of money on education and awareness around this issue. But the fact that we still don't have it in some of the cash poor communities that are Black and brown, it's just, to me, it's a shame.
Yeah, and it's like blatant.
Yeah.
It's blatant. I see we have Pedro here, so I'm super excited to have him. But Sandy, I do want to just give you an opportunity. What is sort of like the calls to action in this moment? How can people step up and get involved, across the city to really address this crisis? I think a lot of it is the responsibility of our government, right, and our leaders. But there is an energy amongst just everyday community members that really want to help in this moment. So what advice or call to action would you offer to them?
Yeah, so I have a couple. One, if you do have, if you're working and you have, spending money and you can spend on food, you have a nice food budget for your family, sign up for a CSA, a community supported agriculture. That means you are paying in advance a farmer or a farm to grow food that you'll receive all summer or all winter. It's one of the most direct ways to support the small farmers in our area. And it really makes a difference for many farms because they know they get that income up front, that they can pay their workers well. They know they can plant, and everything that they plant is going to be purchased. It's already purchased. So that's a huge thing you could do. We really do need to support our larger food pantries, because even though many of them depend on waste, a lot of them also purchase food. Just to fill out the basket that they're able to give. So sometimes the food banks don't have enough of a comprehensive bag, and so they purchase stuff to supplement it and make that weekly grocery bag actually good.
Yeah.
So they do need the money. And then also we really need to look at supporting folks who have this kind of policy framework, who want to support farm workers and food workers. There's a lot of funds right now to support grocery store workers. There are Amazon Whole Foods has a whole fleet of people who are delivering groceries on e-bike, because that they're hiring a ton of people, but those workers need protections. They need hazard pay. They need, they are now essential workers, and they should be, really paid for that work. So those are some calls to action that I think of. And then obviously supporting a lot of mutual aid groups, because they are also buying food just to fill in gaps where the city is not able to cover.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sandy, so much. I appreciate you hopping on. And I know you literally had a long day dealing with food insecurity today. So it's very much in theme with your work and your investment in the community to make sure that we're all surviving in this moment. So thank you, Sandy, for hopping on. You're welcome to stay, but I know you had a long day. So
I know I have to run, but thank you so much, Jess. You're doing amazing work. I'm so proud of all of you and your whole team. And Pedro, nice to meet you, but hopping on.
Thank you, Sandy. Pedro, we're super excited to have you. I know it's also, I'm sure, been a very long day for you. Pedro Rodriguez runs and is the founder and runs the La Jornada Food Pantry. Such an important institution here in Western Queens. They're in Flushing. I got to volunteer there and see directly the profound impact that you make in the community. When I served, and then when I was leaving that afternoon, I saw the line of people waiting for food wrapped around the neighborhood. Right before you joined us, Pedro, we were talking about the vast food insecurity that we're seeing, not just here in Queens, but across the city. So Pedro, I'd love to turn it over to you and for you to share more about, just tell us about La Jornada, how you founded it, and how the need has changed in this moment. So you just have to unmute yourself, or Mia can unmute you, and we'll turn it over to you. There we go.
Oh, you see that? Okay,
yes.
Good.
Thank you, Pedro. So good to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having us over here today. It's an honor to work with you. Thank you very much once again for coming in to help. You notice how important are volunteers in our organization, because that's what we all are. We're all volunteers. Mm-hmm. When we started La Jornada 12 years ago, we made a decision that it was going to be a volunteer organization, and we have been able to keep it that way for 12 years, and we're very proud of that. So that's the first thing that we decided 12 years ago. And the second thing we decided to do was what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And we started working with the day laborers. Mm-hmm. We went up and down Northern Boulevard, giving out food to the day laborers. And then we decided to give them information to the day laborers. So we started all the information, all kind of news that were affecting them. When we were going out giving them food, we were giving them information. And then we decided that one day we're going to invite them for dinner.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And that day was when we found out that day laborers also have families.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise for all of us. Oh my God, they have women and children and things like that. So that immediately changed us to thinking about what were their needs. Mm-hmm. The primary need was food. Mm-hmm. No, the second need was work. So we decided that we were going to go and help them get food. So we started purchasing food. Went to Jetro and buy food, and we pack it, and we did all those things. We were very young and inexperienced. We didn't know what a food pantry was. Mm-hmm. We were doing a food pantry before we started checking the definition. And so for 2 years, we did that. And then we were growing too much. So we decided that we would really have to find out what is this. And then that's when we started asking for help from Food Bank and City Harvest and Uruguay, and they all joined us and started a food pantry. Mm-hmm. In Queens. We started in Bayside, then from Bayside we moved to Flushing, and then from Flushing we moved from one church to another, mm-hmm. until we finally finished here in plant houses in our own space that we were very happy with.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but the only situation was that once we moved in there, we was March 13 was when the world came to an end.
Yes. I mean, the coronavirus really escalated that week.
Exactly. And then we were saying they are opening us. Oh, we're going to have a party to open up. And and we couldn't even do that. We haven't been able to open. Yeah, we're just running with this thing here. And we run from, last year we were averaging around 1,000 clients a week. Right now we're running 4,000 clients a week.
Wow.
Last year we were running our volunteers were mostly seniors and ladies that stay home and they say, oh, I want to go and help.
Yeah.
To when this whole thing happens, we lost them completely because they were the seniors that had to stay home and everything. But also, I don't know where all these 20-year-olds started to show up. I have the youngest volunteer corps in the history of food pantries. Okay, they're mostly young people that are now without work, but they just want to volunteer, and they come over and help us download trucks and pack bags and do all the things that my own volunteers used to do. So we are very proud of these young people. Now, this is the moment we have to stop talking about them. Young people are not egotistic. Young people are not fighting for themselves. Young people are not, they care. Young people love their neighbors. Young people work for their neighbors. Young people do all these things. Okay? So all that BS about young people, come and see my people, my volunteers, work. And then you tell me young people don't have a future.
They are. Yes.
Yeah, you saw them, right?
Yeah.
Incredible. These are young people that all of a sudden they're giving out to their community, and they love giving out to their community. They're there humongous hours, tired and beat up, and they're doing it because they love their neighbors. They really love to help out people, and that's what they do. They do that very well, and so that's what that was the other thing that changed dramatically was that. The other thing that changed dramatically was our clients. You go and see all the food pantries, pictures and videos. You see 6 women, an elderly man, 6 women, an elderly man. Those were the famous lines that we used to take here. But you come right now to our food pantry, you see young families in their 20s, husband and wife, and 20s and 30s, and they're all young. They're all educated. They all had jobs before this. And it's incredible how that change is dramatic. Because if you look at my clients right now, in the last month, we had 6,000 new clients. People who have never come to a food pantry, people who do not know what a food pantry is or looks like or acts like. I mean, they just know that you go there and they give you food. But it's incredible. That change is so dramatic when you see families, really, families in need.
Yes.
People have worked all their lives, 10, 15 years, some of them, and they don't have work.
Yeah.
And not only they don't have work, they don't have food.
Yeah.
And that is a dramatic change in your life.
Exactly.
And this has affected thousands upon thousands of New Yorkers. We had a meeting on Tuesday with all the big food pantries in Queens. And the stories that they tell me, I thought I was going to go there and tell my stories, how horrible it is. Forget it. I'm nothing compared to what some of these people are going to. River Fund in Jamaica, from 6,000 people a week, 20,000 people a week. You know what that is? I mean, I'm thinking, how can you see 20,000 people? How can you even count 20,000? This whole situation has increased so dramatically and so fast. Remember, all this is in the period of a month.
Yeah, just this month.
Yeah, we started just young today. I mean, when you remember the deaths from the virus, I mean, today 60,000 people have died in the United States, and it's going to be 30 million people without work by the end of this week. All that in a period of 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so dramatic and so fast, and these people are not prepared for this.
Yeah.
90% of Americans are not prepared to what is happening. They are, and what am I going to do? I'm home. My children are asking for food. I don't have the money. What am I going to do? I don't. Even if I had the money to go to the supermarket, there's no food in the supermarkets. I mean, it is the most ridiculous. I mean, this is America, right? The richest country in the world.
Yeah.
Am I like forgot that? I mean,
Yeah.
and the richest city in the world, you can Google it.
Yeah.
It's New York City.
Yeah.
And from the richest city in the world, we have hunger. Actual family hunger.
Mm-hmm.
I hear people, I lost my job 20 days, 35 days ago, and I don't have any food in my house. No food in my house.
Mm-hmm.
That is scary.
Yeah.
You hear those words. You go, hello? But you look young, you look capable of working. Yes, but they don't let me work.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that is very scary, what is going on here with the families. But at the same time, I see a lot of fire in there. You see a lot of desire to go out and work. I don't see a lot of desire of, we have to make changes. Because that's the other thing that is happening right now. People are beginning to see changes that have to be made. People know that we have to change our healthcare system.
Yes.
People know that we have to change our priorities as a country.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot spend more than half of our income on guns, bullets, rockets, planes. So we cannot do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And people are beginning to see that. People are beginning to see how important food is. People think how important it is to take care of the poor, because for a period of time, they are going to be poor.
Yeah.
So they change their mentality about poor people. Some of these people that are coming right now were the people that 2 months, 3 months ago were saying, did you check that? Are you sure those people in the food pantries need food? I mean, are you sure about that? Who's checking their credentials and stuff? Are you maybe, don't, those people there and go and abuse the system. That's what they live in. They live in. Now you're here.
Now they're there. Exactly.
And now they're changing their minds.
Yeah.
And when this stops, this is the second tsunami. I keep talking about this first tsunami. They just came over, and we are right there in the middle of it. All these people hungry, all these people without work, all these people in need, all these people that are not able to pay their rent, not able to pay their car bills, not anything. That's the first tsunami. The second tsunami is going to be when these people get angry and say no more.
Yeah.
We have to stop this government for doing stupid things like they're doing right now. We cannot buy aircraft carriers just because we need another aircraft carrier, because it's stupid. We have more aircraft carriers than the rest of the world combined.
Exactly.
Right? Do we need another one?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need another 17 million planes? That we have the best planes in the world. Do we need to be super best planes? And all those things that it's sad that we have spent all that money.
Yeah.
$18 trillion has spent on security.
Yeah.
For the last 18 years.
Yeah.
And do we feel secure? Do we really feel secure?
Mm-hmm.
No. We are here right now at homes, closing our doors. We don't want anything in. That is the security that all those $18 trillion have brought us. Nothing.
And Pedro, you made such a good point about our system is so weak that any of us could be vulnerable in this moment. And like you said, when I was there, I saw the families, I saw the children, I saw, again, people line up. And I even when I was there was a woman who was waiting to get her own food, but she wanted to volunteer until her time was, she had like a ticket to get it at a certain time. And it was really meaningful as someone who needed food themselves wanted to help others as well. So I thought that was actually very beautiful. But I do think it is a travesty that our government has allowed, and you get, like you said, spend money on things that are not important in this moment, and we have a system in which families, communities, workers, our mothers, grandmothers, brothers, they're falling through the cracks. And I'm thinking about the origin story, La Jornada, right? The worker, the day laborer. Can you just talk to me about the fact that the immigrant communities have been excluded from many of these relief programs, and how important it is for like what the food pantries do and what you're doing to ensure that those families can survive in this moment? And we just unfortunately only have a few more minutes, but I really want you to share about that work.
It's a question of hate.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to use that word, but it's hate. Certain people in this country hates immigrants.
Yeah.
Because even if they pay the taxes, but they say you should pay the taxes, even when they pay the taxes, they don't get treated equally by the tax people, right? I mean, if you pay taxes, but you don't have a social security, even though you pay the taxes, we're going to give money to the people who pay the taxes, except the people who are immigrants. So I thought it was about taxes. I thought it was about money. No, it's about immigrants. It's about continuing that hate that he has created since he moved into office. Okay, and that hate is carried on by so many people, because you can see that protecting this immigrant community, which is our job, and it should be the job of the whole city. But if let's say we have a group of people that's going to, it's because these people are so marginalized by everybody. I can even talk about city, state, and federal government have marginalized these people, because if they wanted to finish this whole thing, they would have done it already. If they wanted the day laborers to have a good, decent place to go and find jobs, they would have done it. It's not. We're not talking about trillions of dollars or anything. If you want them to be paid fairly, that could have been done. If you want them to all those things, city and state and federal government have failed the day laborers.
Yes.
And I hate to say this, but they have failed the poor.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
The poor
people in the front lines, right? These are the people that are still working, right? And not getting the resources that they need to stay healthy, to survive in this moment. And it's a travesty that we're putting their lives in danger. And again, not giving them the resources that they need.
Look, if you go into any hospital, go and look at the nurses. Majority are immigrants. Go and look at any of the hospitals. The doctors are immigrants. We are a city of immigrants, and the immigrants should be like the highest level of treatment, because that's how many we are. But we're treated badly. Why? Because somebody has other priorities. I'm going to get an example this week. Governor Cuomo decided that we're going to need some money to spend on food. No good. So great. I'm going to increase the budget in food 50%. When we had 200,000 people unemployed, that would have been great. But now we're talking about probably 1 million New Yorkers that are out of work. So you go and spend $20 million. That's $20 a person. How much food can I give you to take home with $20?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's the insanity that they don't see. They don't see the numbers up there. They don't see this family that is trying to pay the rent because they want to do the right thing. And they send half of the rent in, but they don't have any food. Right? That's the insanity. And these people don't care. Don't work, stay home. Don't worry, pay your rent, pay all your bills. We don't care how you get the money, but no, stay home. They forcing us to stay home, and now we're going to have to pay everything.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. It's like somebody with a gun saying, okay, now you have to pay the bills. I don't have, let me go and work. No, you can't work, but you have to pay the bill. Where is they getting this insanity that they're going to get away with this so little money to help the poor, so little money to feed New Yorkers? Feeding New Yorkers is going to cost billions of dollars.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And people don't understand that. But we're going to go and spend it in something else.
Yeah.
The city, the federal government, we're going to do all the airlines and we're going to do help everybody else up there. But feeding people is all the way down the bottom of the line until one day you're there. And this is what is going to change in the future. These people have gone through this.
Yeah.
Now they understand what is going on.
Exactly.
And the paradigm is going to change dramatically about this whole thing about being taking care of the poor. I'm telling you, this is going to be, because they felt it.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that you look, you touch from the outside. No, they were the elephant. They were there in the room. I was the elephant in the room, and they are going to do it. And I think it's going to be dramatic change over there. But until that dramatic change happened, we had to fight for more money for food. We had to fight for more money for masks and gloves and things like that. What was my budget for masks and gloves last year? None.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, what was my budget last year? I was looking at my people said, "What much did we spend on?" Oh, you gloves. We did gloves. Yeah, everybody was wearing gloves because we were packing the thing. Yeah, mask. We never even thought about mask. I mean, and now we use gloves like hot water. Boom, boom. Mask. We got to. So it is for us. It's becoming a very, very expensive thing to run this operation. But before we didn't have to. But
so, Pedro, how can folks? So we have to wrap up. But I do want folks to be able to support your work. You're doing such critical work in this moment. I've seen it with my own eyes. It is so, so important, and I thank you so much for it. But for those of us that might have some money or resources or time, what are the ways that we can help La Jornada?
First of all, volunteer. Come over here and help us. We need as many volunteers as we can get a hold of. Second thing is, you can give us money. You can go onto our Facebook page, and there is a PayPal thing. We have our GoFund thing. You can do all that.
GoFundMe.
But what really is important is for you to go next door and look at your neighbors.
Yes.
Knock on your neighbor's door and say, "Hi, are you okay?" That, forget La Jornada and everything else. That is the most important thing that you can do. Because we are New Yorkers. We are just behind doors. We are in jail right now. We're going to get out of jail soon. But I think that's going to be the important thing. Go there and take care of your neighbors. You go into you're in a building, go into 4, 5, 6, 7 apartments and say, "How you doing? What do you need? Can we help you?" Help each other in that your first circle of help. Your neighbors, your family, and your neighbors. And that's, I think, what we should do. Although we should just go and knock the door and say, "Hi, I know I've been living here for 20 years, and I don't know you. You've been here for 20 years, and I never say hello to you, except in the elevator. But I want to say, how can we help each other? Do you need any help? Are you okay?" So those are the things that I think that's the most important thing. We have to become New Yorkers' neighbors.
And when can folks volunteer La Jornada? What days are you open?
We are open 6 days a week.
Okay. So
they can come in Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5, and we will find you something to do. That's it. Okay, so that you can volunteer there. If you want to help us financially, great. We go to our Facebook page, and you find the links in there. Great. But just go to your neighbor. I still think that it's the most important thing that we can do is just knock on the neighbor's door.
I love that.
Say hi. Yeah.
So we put the Facebook page in the chat over here. So it's facebook.com/La Jornada NY. Thank you, Pedro, so much.
Thank you.
And again, I know you're doing such important work, and I'm so ever grateful for you. And I love the origin story, because I worked many years with the immigrant population and the day laborers. Like you said, they're human beings, they're workers, they have families. It is so critical that we're supporting everyone in our communities, and particularly those that are not able to get the government resources because of the racist and xenophobic leaders that we have that are excluding our populations that are on the front line. So I'm so grateful for you, Pedro. Folks, please volunteer. Please check in on your neighbors. And if you have the resources to donate to La Jornada, please do. we thank you for joining us tonight.
No, thank you. I'm sorry I was late. You know,
It's okay. You're doing
busy day.
the important work. So thank you, Pedro. And
Thank you. Thank you. Jessica, I want to say thank you to you because you have been one of the greatest supporters during this time, but it's very difficult.
thank
I
you.
know, because all politicians want to do certain things and really they like to talk instead of do. And
Yeah.
you're one of the few ones that are doing instead of talking.
Thank you. Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay?
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night. You too. Good night, everybody. Take care.